Okay, welcome to the fourth and last video for the recap session, Phonetics 2, where we are ended up in your reader on page 44, where we are going to look at the nasals and the l, and then also the other sonorants, the other approximants, ruiwa. But let's start with the l sounds and the three allophones. You see the first ones on the screen, the clear and the dark l. Both allophones have different resonance. The clear one is used before vowels or a y. So before a vowel, an example could be hollow or layer, and also before a y sound in a word like billion. You hear a clear l, meaning you have e resonance, whereas with a dark l sound, the sound is much more warmer, as I call oo resonance. It's oo resonance. Listen for words like full and middle and build. The sound is more rounded, more warm, and it's called oo resonance. The last one is actually one you already know. It's the devoiced allophone of the l, because it's used after putiker, these plosives which push away the sound in the l sound, like they do with all the approximants, luriwa. And instead of hearing a voiced l, you hear a hissing sound, some friction, like play and clay. Yeah. So those are the allophones of l. Now, if we move on, we are going to look at two interesting features that happen with the nasals and the l. And that has to do with the fact when they are used syllabic. Remember the schedule we just looked at where we familiarize ourselves with the sonorants on page 43, the last column. And we saw that the sonorants share some characteristics that vowels have. In this case, that it's enough to form a syllable. In a word like decision or season, the zn at the end is one syllable. Now, in words like little and middle, the tul and dul have a special way of releasing the sound. Let's have a look. The t and the d, if you produce this ending, this syllable at the end of the word little or middle, the rims and the blade and the tip of the tongue close off the mouth, and then the rims, the sides of the tongue are lowered. It's called lateral, so moving out on the sides to produce the l sound. The tip of the tongue does not move, and that means the air can only escape on the sides of the tongue. And the plosives t, d are released as a l, so in a voiced way as well, without a schwa. So this is called schwa elision in this case. So if you say little and middle, and you really push the tip of your tongue against the alveolar ridge, then there's no other way for the air to escape than through over the sides of the tongue and then to the front of the mouth. The other instance of something like this is to do with the combination of t, d and t with the n sound in words like modern and written and Britain. In this case, the tips, the rims, the blade and the tip of the tongue again close off the mouth, just like with little and brittle. However, because you have to say the nasal sound, the soft palate is lowered, and still the tip and the rim of the tongue don't move, so there's no other way for the air to escape than through the nose. And so you say modern and Britain, written. If you do this, if you really keep your tongue in place, then you can also feel it in your ears, because you say a nasal, no schwa, and you produce them one after another, and you can feel in your ear that you use your nasal cavity to say Britain, modern, push it and hear it. So that's a very interesting feature to do with l and n in combination with t, d. Next, we're going to look at the main allophones of the r sound in RP. There are three, of which the first two are the most important ones. The first one is the label we expect you to give when we ask you about the three-term label for r, which is voiced, post, alveolar, approximant. However, again, here we have the plosive putiker, and if they precede the r, then it becomes voiceless, and also it becomes a fricative because there's a lot of friction. Remember, the plosives push away the sound in the r sound, tray, pray, cray, and you hear friction. It's voiceless. The last case where it's voiced, again, post-alveolar and also fricative, is in a word like dry. There's actually only one instance with dr. Less important. So remember, at the exam, when you ask to give the three-term label for the r, you have to give the first one. And the second rule you already know when you studied the plosives. We already studied the linking R, the normal linking R, in a phrase like no R in spelling. Have a look, because the next word starts with a vowel. You use strong liaison and you pronounce it in one word. You use the R as a linking R, and you are allowed to pronounce it in RP. So when you add an R in pronunciation between two words, sorry, I'm reading to demonstrate a normal linking R, but what is an intrusive linking R? There's actually no R in spelling, and you still pronounce it. Have a look at these examples. Russia and China, Law and Order, I saw a film. Interestingly, there is no R in spelling, but you do pronounce it. Why? I don't know, but it's probably to do with speed and fluency and liaison, so to pronounce it in a nice and fluent way, just like the French actually do. But in this case, it's extra special because it's intrusive. Don't worry, you don't have to do this when you transcribe sentences at the exam, but you have to know what intrusive linking R is. You have to be able to define it, give an example, or when you are given an example, you are expected to recognize it. So when you see Russia and China transcribed, you have to explain what the R is all about, intrusive linking R. It's best not to apply this within a word, by the way, so don't say drawing, but just say drawing. Yeah? But I saw a film, very nice. This is also nice to recognize when you hear British people speak, and if you like, you can start applying it yourself. Let's move on to the next approximant, the y sound. Well, of course, the three-term label is voiced palatal approximant, and main thing that we focused on and paid attention to is that in RP you say new, student, lunar, and stupid, whereas in American English it would be new, student, lunar, and stupid. So that's a big difference, and might be something that your pupils would say. That's not correct. And again, after the plosive putiker, it is devoiced. So in a word like puke and tune and cute, you have an allophone of the y, which is devoiced. So then it's no longer voiced palatal approximant. Again, like with all the other examples, this is the label you're expected to give. This is something you need to know about. Finally, we get to the w sound, the three-term label for the w. Very special case, voiced labiovelar. Remember, you feel it in your velum as well, approximant. And the main feature that we wanted to point out here is that in Dutch, it has two options. It can either be labiodental approximant in the biggest part of the country where you say wat, and in the south, it's actually bilabial. It's rounded, and you say what. The nice thing is that it's velar in RP, and it has an oo-like sound, oo resonance, and people from the south do the same thing. So this bilabial is closer to labiovelar than labiodental for general English. So in this case, people from the south have a bit of an advantage when they say what, very close. A good word to practice the correct W with, or the W sound, is the word what. So this example word on the slide is there for a reason. Yes, and of course, again, after the putiker, well, put doesn't happen, this word sound is devoiced in words like Twitter, quite, queen. There's a lot of friction again, but you knew that, of course. And that's the end of page 45 in your reader. This brings us to the last chapter, chapter 14, which is all about consonants in contact. And like I said in class, the main thing to study here is assimilation. Assimilation means making similar. Similar is in there. That means you make two sounds similar. It's very accent specific, and it's a very common feature in Dutch, which is difficult to unlearn because it's almost subconscious. You do it and you don't really realize it. Well, hopefully the examples in class made it clear that we use a lot of assimilation in Dutch, and the main thing to know is, what is it? Why is it important for Dutch learners of English? Because we have to try to avoid it. So assimilation is defined as when a word's pronunciation is affected by sounds in a neighboring word. We call this process assimilation. It's affected in that you make it similar. So one sound influences the other. The phonological context influences the sound. Some examples in Dutch on the slide. Ik lees dit. Ik lees dit. Because the d is voiced, you tend to also use voicing in the s, and you actually make it into a z. Ik lees dit. You don't say ik lees dit, but you say ik lees dit. Grootvader, different case, because the t in groot is devoiced, it's sort of fortes in RP's speech, and the v is voiced, you actually devoice the v, and you say grootvader, and you make it into a f. Afdanken, you don't say afdanken, but you voice the f because of the d, which is voiced, afdanken. Zakdoek, also a nice one, the d affects the k, and it makes it into a g sound. And roofvogel, you actually blend the two together, the f and the v. There are 3 types of assimilations in your reader on page 48, you can see that. You've got regressive, progressive, and coalescent. Regressive is the sound that follows, influences the previous one. Progressive is the other way around, and coalescent means that they come together and blend into one sound. Some examples of regressive assimilation: een boek. In this case, the effect goes backwards, so the b, the voiced b, influences the n, and the n becomes a m, because you, in this case, it's not really voicing, it's to do with articulators. You make it bilabial too, so you say een boek. Try it out, not everyone felt it in class, but yeah, if you say it quickly, you probably do this. Progressive assimilation is the other way around. In this case, it's zout. The t influences the z, and it takes away the voicing, and it becomes voiceless. So instead of saying het zout, you say het zout. It becomes a s. An example of coalescent assimilation is a word like versje, where you don't say versje, but you make it into one sound, sh, versje. So these are 3 examples. In your reader on page 48, you'll find some more examples like huisvrouw and hoefijzer and wasje and onrust. Study them. Make sure you know at least one example for all 3 types of assimilation. And what is also important to remember is that assimilation is undesirable in English. Most cases are assimilations of voice, yeah? And English has practically no assimilations of voice, where you change voicing and devoicing. So in English, in RP, voices is always voices, and voiced remains voiced. And that's not what we do in Dutch. We are easily influenced by sounds that follow each other or precede each other. In RP, you do have some assimilation. If you like to see some examples, have a look in your book or in your reader and recognize them as, okay, this is correct RP. So they do have some assimilation. It's usually not voice, and apply the rules if you like. Okay, if you like means nice to know. What you need to know is, what is assimilation? What types of assimilation are there? Can you give examples? And why is it important for Dutch learners of English to know about assimilation? And you have some examples here of RP, which is good RP, one paper and good books, and this ship, yeah, 3 examples. This is something which is in your reader. This is a term which is not in the book, gemination. This is something where I said you don't have to study it. I noticed it's in the exam, so all you need to know, basically, is that gemination is RP. In Dutch, we do degemination. We don't use double consonants like prime minister. We just say prime minister, and we have one m sound. Yeah. But remember, this is in the exam. If you miss this point, don't worry. You'll be fine. And in Dutch, we do it in one. So I left it in just for your information. Nice to know, but don't worry. And that's the end of the slideshow. So a black screen now, enabling me to answer your questions which you handed in class on the post-its. There was a question if you need to know about distribution in your book on page 122. The answer is no, don't worry about it. I know you have to know all the ball printed words in the reader, but I hope these videos have helped you to decide, well, to realize what you need to know, and distribution is not on this list. There's also a question about the true-false quiz. There is this quiz, which you may not have seen yet, but it's very nice to prepare for the exam. And I have to check the answers. I haven't checked it yet. I will, and I'll change the key if necessary. There was a question about the key for the transcription sentences. Yes, I will put it on Onderwijs Online as soon as possible. And I have changed this PowerPoint for the sake of the recording. When I was recording, I noticed some slides were missing. So I will upload it again after finishing this recording, and that's the one you can use while listening to these videos. And finally, I hope these videos have helped you prepare. I hope so. No idea, but I do wish you good luck preparing for the exam. And I hope you will all make yourselves and your teacher happy. And that's the end. Okay, bye-bye.